A very good evening and welcome to the United Hotspot. We are live again after skipping one day. I'm sure many of you are wondering what's wrong with Web, what's happening. Guys, I've got a family as well. I've got life. I went and checked on my family, and that's why yesterday, if you notice, one of my videos was in my hood where I was born and grew. Grew up, so I had to give time to family. But yeah, here I am. I had been here all through the new year, the 31st. Every time I was here, I didn't check on my family, so I had to go back and check on them. But I'm back for you here as we do talk Manchester United. My name is Webb. A very good morning, good evening. How is your weekend? How have you been? What's happening? Talk to me. What's going on? Because Man United is still top of the scenes. It's hot, hot and blazing. Timo Werner, I've got an update. He's headed the wrong way, should I say. He's going to London, not to Manchester. If you'd ever wanted Timo Werner at Manchester United, I'm not one of those. Well, I thought it was a decent, rumor for a striker to come in on loan, but I'm not entirely. I wasn't entirely for Timo Werner. You all know where my stand has always been on Saho Girassi. But Timo Werner going to Tottenham Hotspur, we'll talk about that briefly, what it means and what options are left available for Manchester United. Well, Hannibal Mabry also, I hinted to you about Hannibal Mabry and how he was rumored to be headed out on loan. And indeed, he has been confirmed. Hannibal Mabry will be leaving Manchester United to go to Sevilla. Is it the right place for a player who has been emerging? I've got my doubts and reservations about that. I'll tell you about that in a bit. But also, we do got have the FA Cup coming up, Wigan Athletic, and the squad is almost full. A full house very soon at Manchester United. Is it time for us to see Altel Baindil make his debut for Manchester United? Tell me about that. But what exactly are we going to expect this year? Because it was a bad ending to the year 2023. All that here on the United Hotspot. My name is Webb. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Well, I know not so many of you enjoy making phone calls, but yes, I'll keep the number there because I do want us to interact, guys. I just don't want to come and talk because there is so many stories, especially on a day like today. There is a lot for us to ponder on and talk about. But let's start off with the latest one that has come through concerning that man. Timo Werner, the 24-year-old striker, has been confirmed headed to London. Tottenham Hotspur have agreed a long deal with an option of buying him on a permanent with RB Leipzig. So Timo Werner will be joining Spurs. Spurs will be meeting all his wages, and there is an option for them to buy him and get him out of his misery at RB Leipzig. The reality is this guy was tried in the Premier League. It didn't work out for him, but does it then give him more hunger to come back? Because at 27, that's a young player. He's a young player. He certainly has got a lot of football left in his feet. So but those who felt he wasn't good enough, well, let's see whether that's what he will do against Spurs. I pray that he's there on that game on the 14th. I pray that he's there in that game so that we get all of them in there and we beat them bad, because for United, the squad is full. But Timo Werner, and I know there are people who will feel like we've missed out on an opportunity to get a player on loan, because it's almost exactly what Man United wanted to do with him. The loan spell for 6 months and maybe see if they can get him on a permanent, depending on how it goes. But I know there are people there who feel like we've missed an important player, but in all honesty, for me, I think Timo Werner, for a player who failed to perform at Chelsea, I don't think United should be rushing. We should be going for rejects. If I would say that. I don't think we should be going for rejects. And Timo Werner is a proper reject. Man United, the new Man United we're excited about, should be exciting us with players we have not seen tested or failed. If they are tested, they should be good. For example, I will listen when you talk about Michael Olise. My only disquiet about Olise is not about his abilities, it's about the other players we have. The Amad Diallos and Mason Greenwoods, who he would be blocking, but never about his abilities and and not being proven. But for Timo Werner, who failed at Chelsea years ago, by the way, when he was at RB Leipzig, at some point was the hottest striker in the world. For me, I think it's good riddance for Manchester United. So let's look at the other options. So what options are there? Remember, Manchester United now is a bit in a sort of a and is a bit eased when it comes to that backup striker. Anthony Martial, it is clear. The talks have been going on, but it is clear that United are not willing to trigger his contract extension at Man United. So his contract will run out at the end of the season. We are looking at cashing him, and it is believed, by the way, and people are calling this fake news. It's not. With United, guys, I keep saying it, that with United, it's not so difficult to leak news in Man United. It is it should be true that indeed Fenerbahce are interested in signing Anthony Martial. They tabled a bid of 8 million euros. That's just about 7 million pounds. So United is still in talks. We are trying to hold on, hold up for a bigger bid, or maybe a better bid. But I think for Anthony Martial, his stay at United is done now. So that's why we are now talking of options. Who should come in? There's Choupo-Moting being linked with us, but is Choupo-Moting the striker we want? All these strikers for me are wrong. The only striker we've been linked with that is, first of all, a natural striker that is not tried in the Premier League is Sahu Girassi. And that's why for me, hearing that a player like Martial is going out, then the next day I hear that Timo Werner is going to Spurs, I feel we are tending more to my player. All I want now to hear is that we've cashed in on Anthony Martial, even if it's the 8 million euros we are getting from Fenerbahce. If it comes, top up a bit, because I'm sure we have the 6 million pounds. I'm sure we do have the 6 million pounds. So if we tell Martial 6 million, add that on our 8, that's 15. Go sign, trigger the buyout clause for Sahu Girassi from Stuttgart, let him come. Even if that's the only signing we make in January, for me that would be a decent January transfer window, because what's glaring is that we need a backup striker for Rasmus Højlund. So that's what's up. But also giving new news for today. What has just been confirmed is that Hannibal Mejbri is headed out on loan. He's going out on loan to Sevilla. And yeah, well, Mejbri has been emerging. He has been developing, I think, slowly but surely. My disquiet for me is the choice of clubs we send our players to when it comes to these loan moves. Because you look at a player like Mejbri, who you think has been progressing. I think Mejbri can be a strong player for United in the future. I think he's one of those players of the generation that can be good for Manchester United. I love his mentality. He's a work hardy. He has had his moments. I think he has sort of grown. It's just that the position he plays is a bit cluttered right now. But loaning a player to Sevilla, think about all the players who've loaned to Sevilla before. How has it happened? Look to Spain. Look at a player like Anthony Martial himself. He went to Sevilla. He failed to establish himself there. Real Sociedad. You remember we loaned out, we loaned out Donny van de Beek. How did it go? It didn't go well for him. So for me, I feel like we choose the clubs to loan our players. I think we choose the wrong clubs, all the wrong clubs to loan our players. I feel like we keep our players in the, because the reality is not so many leagues have got the competition that is at the level of the Premier League, or if not the Premier League, keep them in England in the second tier. But pushing our players, because it's the A League and all, there are not so many leagues that will give players a proper test. That's why so many players come from these other leagues when they are the hottest players, come to United and struggle. You look at all these Onanas, or talk of the outfield players, the Schneiderlins, the Donny van de Beek himself arrived as the hottest player, the Amrabat. The level of the Premier League is so high that it can only be compared to the Championship. The second tier in English football is a better place for our players to develop than Spain, than Germany. And for me, these are the wrong decisions I keep seeing, because history has shown us this. It has been clear. These players do not improve when they go to these leagues. It's just them getting more game time in a top tier league, but they don't improve because the level of these leagues is below. It's not by mistake that people keep calling them farmers leagues. I think the only league that can try maybe to make players a bit hard and come a bit close to the Premier League is the Italian league, the Serie A. But I think for me, it's the Champions. That's why I think Amad Diallo, and I hope we get to see him on Monday. We'll talk about him in a bit, and because I believe he should be starting, we'll talk about him in a bit. Amad Diallo benefited a lot from his loan spell to Sunderland than Anthony Martial did when he went to Sevilla, than Donny van der Beek when he went to Real Sociedad, than Hannibal will benefit when he goes to Sevilla now. Yet obviously he will be playing more at the top level. So for me, that's my issue. We chose the wrong teams to loan these players, or the leagues to loan these players too. And for me, that's a very, very huge problem. I've got messages. I keep getting messages on that number. By the way, you can WhatsApp on that. Also, go in the comment section. You can call as well. Don't you worry about calling. You can as well call on that number and talk to me. I'm ready for you. to pick up your call and listen to you and what you've got to say about the whole Manchester United situation going on right now here on the United Hotspot. Now, away from so those loans for me are a crucial thing, but we do mishandle them most of the times. We send players to the wrong teams. But let's wait and see what will go on with Hannibal Mabry. Now, away from that, of course, we do know that we have an FA Cup game coming up, and the question now will be, how is Erik ten Hag going to be assembling his team for that Monday game? But even before talking about Ten Hag and how he's going to assemble the team, for me, and we are united and we should be competing for every ball in every competition. We should be trying to be the best we can be and win. And that's why I think, yes, obviously we are going to come and, we want to beat Wigan. In fact, Erik ten Hag cannot afford to lose another game against the Mino like that. He cannot afford to lose another game against a small team like Wigan. But in terms of approach and mentality, because football is an extremely mental game. That's why one of the best players in the world or ever, Cristiano Ronaldo, keeps talking about mentality. Football is mostly about mentality. Now, I think our mentality, for me, should prioritize, and this should be from the top. We should prioritize finishing among the top four in the Premier League than all these other, anyways, on the FA Cup. Because if we go into this FA Cup with the mentality of we want to win it, and it's going to affect how we perform in the Premier League. Because first of all, our depth, yes, we've got the depth in terms of personnel, but in terms of impact, in terms of fitness and quality, there is no depth in our squad. So if your mentality is you want to compete in the FA Cup, then you're going to end up making decisions that are going to affect your performance in the Premier League. And whereas, so for me, I think our mentality should be, yes, let's perform in the best we can do. Let's do the best we can do in the FA Cup, but let's try to keep our best players for the Premier League, because we've got a hot battle we are headed into. From the game against Spurs, which is the only Premier League game we are going to play in this month, we are headed for a marathon. And the final stretch of the Premier League is so hot. It is so hot. These teams are going to get better. Man City is definitely going to get better. Arsenal will get better. Even if they'll get injuries, I'm sure they will get better and difficult. So for me, I think we can't have to lose concentration. The fact that we got out of the Champions League, which I thought for me was a blessing in disguise as well. Yes, it was humiliating, but it was a blessing in disguise. I think the FA Cup should not take away our focus. So that's why I go to which players now. What should we use the game against Wigan for? Erik ten Hag should be using the Wigan game to try and test players who have not been there, because he's going to have an opportunity. For me, it's a big opportunity for Erik ten Hag. And that's why I was saying the mentality matters. If the mentality of Erik ten Hag is we want to win the FA Cup, then he's going to make the wrong decisions in terms of players. So if our mentality is let's use the FA Cup to see, because we've had so many injured players who are going to be returning this month, if they are fit. For example, Lisandro Martinez has been training well, so has Casemiro. If they are fit, use the Wigan game to test their fitness and give them a match atmosphere to make them give them that match fitness for the Spurs game, because it's the bigger, more important game. That should be the bigger, more important game. We can't afford to think that we are the United that should be competing for every title. I think that's us not being humble. That's us not being, doing what Sir Dave Braceford said, that you need to be able to honestly analyze yourself and appreciate your weakness and your mistakes and where you are, and then you should be able to assess and look at yourself and where you can improve. So for me, I think we need to make use of this Spurs game, this Wigan game, to try to test partnerships rather. How can, for example, Kobe Maino play with Casemiro, because that perhaps could be our winning midfield duo, our winning pivot if we choose to play double pivot. Even if it's not, even if we play a single pivot, Kobe Maino and Casemiro are going to be two of our most important players in the middle. So how about testing them, because we don't want to just drop them against Spurs in a big game like that when Casemiro has not been playing. So the Wigan game should be used to test them. So for me, that's a very, very important, it's a critical point we are in this season. And this for me is going to be a good test for Erik ten Hag, his decision making and all. And everyone is watching. It's not only us. Sir Jim and his team are watching. They are seeing what he does. They know what United needs. They will see what decisions he's making. Erik ten Hag has been let down a lot because of his poor squad selection, and usually at times it has been because of his priorities. For example, you saw what he did, substituting Kobe Maino on your final game of the season. You want to end on a high, leave the fans with the fire in them, the excitement. Imagine if we had finished, not the final game of the year. Imagine if we had finished the year 2023 with a performance like the one we had against Aston Villa. I think it would be a whole different energy to take into the new year for the fans and for everyone. Even for Sir Jim Ratcliffe, the meeting at Carrington would be different. But Eric Ten Hag, because of his ineptness and his wrong decisions, sees things differently, chooses to bring in a Scott McTominay, who is probably our best rather our worst player of all players who have been starting. He's our worst, and not in terms of attitude and all, but uh, in terms of skill, his abilities are limited. He might have the right mentality, he might be an academy player, he might have the character, but in terms of abilities, Scott McTominay is probably for me our worst player. And I'm being honest, I nothing against him, but I look at all the players we have. I think he 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 competes with Anthony Dos Santos in terms of who our worst players are. But at least for Dos Santos, we've seen him at Ajax, and we saw some positives. Even people now feel maybe he's just lost his confidence and he's let down by the team and all. But Scott McTominay is our worst player. He has proven that in terms of his abilities. But Eric Ten Hag is insisting on putting him there, and you're playing your final game of the year against Nottingham Forest. It is coming at you as like a tsunami, and you pull him out and bring in a Scott, and you lose the game. So how those are the decisions we talk about. So for me, I think this is going to be a good test for Ten Hag. But also, I want to know in your view whether you think Man United, if we won the FA Cup, for example, and we finished outside the top 5 of the Premier League, would it be a successful season? Would it be a successful season for us? That's a question I would leave for you. But where we're headed now, it's going to be business because Eric Ten Hag knows that Sajim and his team are watching. Eric Ten Hag's job is seriously on the line, and people might think that because they had a meeting and we saw images of them shaking hands, Sajim and all, everything is okay. The reality is Eric Ten Hag is going to be judged because not because of results entirely, not yet, but he's going to be judged on every decision he makes because Sajim has assembled a team of people who know football, who see what he's doing, and he should be judged on every decision he makes. His tactics, because now there's no excuse of disorganization and all. The structure is being set up, and we'll get to know it. So Ten Hag is going to be just judged on every decision. And for me, I've already it's good he has said it himself that when his squad is back, which is going to be starting against Wigan, most of his players will be back. That's when we should be judging him and calling for results. For me, I won't call even for results yet. I will want to see improvement in his tactics, improvement in the decisions he makes, improvement in how we play, in the patterns. So that's for me where I'm going to focus. Even if we lose again, because it will take time for example, players have been out injured for a long time. It will take time for them to gel and all. We can struggle. We can fail to win. For example, a game against Spurs, we can fail to win the game. I expect us to win it, but we can fail to win it, but play so well, and we see improvement. So we're hoping that the next game, the next month, there will be an improvement. So for me, this is where we need to judge Eric Ten Hag. Now, away from that, I want to talk about because people are talking a lot about when you're looking at United now beyond what we see now, because we know that there's a realistic chance or possibility that things will change in the future because there's a new guy in charge of people who think Eric Ten Hag should not be staying for so long. It's a pressure moment. His job is on the line, but we need to then look forward at who can be coming in for Eric Ten Hag. We need to start looking at the future, and that's again very important. Man United has been for the longest time is a bit short-sighted. We've not been managing the club strategically. Strategic management means you look forward, you look to the future, and say, if it doesn't work with this manager, and this is what Sajim and his team should be doing. If it doesn't work, that's why reports of Potter, Graham Potter being on the list, because that's if this doesn't work, what are the options? Now, I think the way they had started going bad for Eric Ten Hag, usually it's so difficult to put them right. when a ship is sinking, I think it's so difficult for the captain to balance it. Whenever you try to balance it, usually it can only just go worse and fall off the other side. It's so difficult to put straight a sinking ship, especially when it comes to the manager. Such team can put together the structure, and over time things can be good. But if you had started the way Eric Ten Hag, if Eric Ten Hag had started badly, for example, look at Mikel Arteta. He started badly at Arsenal, but you would see improvement, subtle improvement in what he was doing. And now you can see that Arsenal is headed somewhere. That's why you see, I kept saying it, that Arsenal's link was a striker. And now that they are looking at Ivan Toney, and most likely they will get him in the summer, I think Arsenal will seriously compete. But you've seen that Arsenal's curve has been like this. Maybe they got a bit stagnant from last season. I think maybe their priorities, I think, changed a bit. They want more farm by solidifying the midfield. The importance of the core of a football team is the midfield. And think of getting a strike, and that's why they think of Ivan. But Man United, Eric Ten Hag comes in, a new manager, and he does this high. It's only going to be down. So from Eric Ten Hag, it's going to be, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's going to be extremely difficult for Eric Ten Hag to put things right. Already a lot has leaked out of the club. Already he has lost a lot of, I was reading something, a colleague of mine carrying me how actually thought that the thing Sir Jim Ratcliffe was going to do was sack Eric Ten Hag. I've got my sources. You will soon know why I say that. That players were shocked at what they saw, well, of course, in public, in terms of Jim and Eric. They thought actually that the first head to go of Eric Ten Hag in United, and I keep telling you that it's not so difficult to read information from United. So it's going to be it's probably true that the dressing room has been divided, but of course you can see what built this. It's not just the injuries that got Eric Ten Hag, where the team, the way he treated certain players, the way he treated Cristiano Ronaldo, the way he treated David De Gea, who should be legends of the club, was always going to have an impact on the players who stay. It is like in your home, if your father, if you let me put it this way, if your parents mistreat your last born, their last born, their favorite, even if you're not mistreated at the time, you will have these quirks about these parents of yours. You will start feeling respect them. You respect them out of fear, but you start distancing yourself from them. You perhaps may not die for them. You perhaps might think of, when do I get out of this house so that I stop? I don't know, anything could happen to me, because you've seen what they can do to their beloved. Now, the way Manu and Ten Hag treated Gia and Cristiano Ronaldo, who were idols of these young players, the Garnachos, idols of players, and they have failed to be vindicated. Time has failed to vindicate their decisions, because things fell south, and Cristiano Ronaldo went on to score so many goals wherever he went, said the things he said. So you think about it and you're thinking, always this is going to have an impact on the players who stay. Look at how the Jadon Sancho situation is. All this will always have an impact on the rest of those who stay. So for me, I realistically think it's going to be difficult, not impossible, and I hope it works out for him. But I think it's going to be extremely difficult for Eric Ten Hag to put things right at Man United. So that said, we need to start now thinking ahead and think what options. For me, Potter is a no. The thing, the craze about Potter is a football while he was at Brighton. But you see, I think people forget that Manchester United, as a club, is not a new club. We are not a city that was an upcoming club that needed someone to come and try to develop them into a consistently, big traditional club with an identity. That's why with Pep Guardiola, because Man United has been there forever and has got a huge fan base, a traditional fan base. Now, a club like that will always have its existing identity that you don't just come and change because you are a new owner. The Man United largely belongs to the fans. The Glazers are the businessmen, but the club they are not even into. I was listening to Avram Glazer, I think, and he was trying to give a motivation speech to some players, I think, of one of his teams in the US, those American football whatever teams, and he was saying all the wrong things, saying Cristiano Ronaldo joined United 16. Ronaldo is it that Glazer Glazer, the Glazer in chief, does not know how old Ronaldo was when joining the team. So it shows you that these guys are detached from the team. For them, it's all about money. So this club belongs more to the supporters. But the supporters of Man United loved this team because of a certain identity. We did not like United because they are playing like panache and football like Arsenal. We liked United because of a certain fight, a certain character that has always been known for United players. The mentality, the fighting, the winning games the last minute, coming from behind, and that is what United supporters love. The adrenaline. United is a team that will spark your adrenaline. That will excite you. That's what we love. Not for their passing and nice passing, and there they do get it wrong. It seems with this Graham Potter talk, the people think that because he played some good football with the teams he had before, it's good football that people would enjoy for the modern game. Manchester United is not a modern club. We can try to be modern with our identity by, for example, Jim greeting the receptionist at Carrington. The lady is older than size 71. The man in receptionist is at 90 something. That she has been there for long. Can you imagine this club in 20 identity? So we can work on our brand to appeal to the young people, but not the style of football we play, because the biggest majority of United supporters are traditional supporters who like a certain brand of football, a competitive brand of football, a hard brand of football, not a beautiful brand of football. We've not been never, and we will never have United for that. That football puts us under tension, under pressure. If that's what we wanted, probably would give Louis van Gaal all the time he wanted, because we know he would have given us. He was trying to start time, and we are looking sluggish. But the time he would have picked up. So for me, I think this Graham Potter talk is nonsense, and that brings me to what I wanted to talk about here finally, on which coaches, and I'm going to look at most the past Man United players who are Man United be the thing I want about Green still and see uh, what goes on with Mason Green his session at Mason Greenwood is wanted by everyone. I love to see people asking about Greenwood, because I think this is a very important decision. But the reality is about Greenwood, Sir Jim is taking his time. I think he knows it's a critical issue. He's British, I mean. He's obviously British, so he knows what exactly. He's British and he's white, so you know what I mean. So he certainly knows the sensitivity of this issue. So I think he was certainly first one to see what exactly goes on with Greenwood at Getafe first, because apparently it is said that he's going to first wait until the end of the summer. Just a minute, someone was disputing me with the call here, but it's okay. I think I have it together now. So the thing is, Greenwood will be back and we need him, but we'll need to first wait a bit, I think. But I think the reality is, what I like is the fact that, and for me it's good enough. I know it was always not going to be easy to bring him back. I think we just need to keep making this noise. Honest, I think Greenwood, we just for now need to consistently keep making the noise. I was thinking, and maybe guys out there, you can drop in the chats and let me know whether you would agree. If you watch my past lives, if you go into the lives I made in the past couple of weeks, there's a live where I was chanting. It was a live chant about Mason Greenwood. I was thinking we keep that a norm and we keep doing it once a week, and we until it eventually picks up. We want it to get to Sir Jim Ratcliffe to know that the biggest majority of Man United supporters want Mason Greenwood back. I think Mason Greenwood's return will not be, cannot be left to these people, the Glazers and the team, to decide. I think it should be more of advocacy and demonstration. I think for Greenwood to return United, there needs to be a demonstration in whichever way, either at Old Trafford and then online. There has got to be a peaceful. By the way, I'm not trying to 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 you know to start a bad demonstration, but I think Greenwood's return should be a demonstration because there is so much hate speech around him. There is so much wrong propaganda around him. There's a lot of people who have strong numbers. We know that the Man U channel is for Greenwood not returning in the world, and I won't be shy to speak about it. Nothing against the channel. It's their opinion, but I don't agree with it. I think it's wrong. They have got millions and millions of followers. So you can imagine the level of impact such a channel would have. So if we have such people to fight against, we know that the media in the UK has blacked out Mason Greenwood. So you understand. So I think, but all these people are not more than the so many Man U supporters globally who want Greenwood back. So Greenwood's return, for me, Ernest Kavuta, his return will not. You don't think Simon and the Glazers will sit in a meeting and decide like, let us Greenwood. I think we need force to back. You know what I mean? And by how do we do it? Is by shouting. You see how we shouted and made noise, Glazers out and what Glazers out, until they were forced to at least to sell or to relinquish their powers over the football. That is exactly what we've got to do with Greenwood. Greenwood's return cannot be peaceful. It cannot be left for them to decide because we never make them to bring him back. But if we make noise, we have to listen because they know it's a critical stage. And the beauty, the opportunity we have now is that there's in a way Sir Jim wants to endear himself to supporters of Man United. So if the biggest voice of Man United is saying Greenwood and it is seen, these guys will have no option. And that's why I want for me to make it, I think, a tradition. And I'll do it. Once every week, come here and shout Greenwood back. Come here and shout Greenwood back. Come here and shout. That's what we can do. What else? Because we've got, some strongly placed people to fight against. And so Greenwood, I think I would still, for that being linked. I don't want to talk about Potter. I don't think he's the kind of management of football he plays. I don't think for United and everything. But what are the options? So for me, you look around today, and there is not so many great coaches. I don't think Man U needs a great coach. If you remember, Sir Alex Ferguson in '86 when he came in, I think from Aberdeen, he was a little known man. No of the Glazers was to bring in the ready-made coaches to come and steer this ship ahead after Sir Alex Ferguson. But Sir Alex Ferguson was also smart. He did not exactly meant at anyone to come and take on after him, which I think that's what makes him the lady he is. I think he should be feeling happy and greater, and that now not happy exactly because I'm sure he's at the club, but you understand he's greater knowing that after him, it is so difficult for anyone to come and manage this team that we've struggled for decades after him. It makes him more important. But Son was trusted, and he wasn't known. I think we need to do the same thing with United now. We need to find a manager who is not really fully established. Trust them, so long as they have got the basics of a good manager. Trust them and let them grow with this whole new project, with this new dawn of Sir Jim and team. For me, that's what I think. And when you talk about such, I want to look into some of the legends of the club because the legends of the club know, especially some of those players who played at Ferguson. Anyway, those are most of the living legends of the club. I think among those we can find a good, decent manager who can take on this club. For me, my first pick would be Michael Carrick, and I'll talk about Carrick and why I think he would be my first pick. But there are others. Of course, had his time, but I think Sosha was a bit failed by the system around him, but also maybe his character a bit. I think Michael Carrick could have a better character than Sosha. But Sosha wasn't a bad manager. I think Sir Alex Ferguson, for me, Sosha is one of the better managers we had. By the I felt like he was failed by the system in a way, because you can imagine how Cristiano Ronaldo was brought in by Cristiano on the final. Sosha was the 10th person to know that coming in. Ronaldo was signed by he was not part of his plan. Or he sort of maybe disorganized his project. It's possible. But Sosha can be mentioned. I think he was one of the more decent managers we saw among the players who played under Sir Alex Ferguson. So I would still have Sosha in my conversation. I would still have talk Hughes and Steve decent. I don't think are the right ones for United. A bit old. I talk of gigs. I think and I'll do a video about all these past come and try to change like Arsenal City or Barcelona, which can't happen. I think we need with what titles he has won. Michael, but him, he has that is how he not the titles for me, and two of the managers. Carrick, all Pep Guardiola, Diego Simeone, all these great managers, by the way, are different players. They were not the best players, maybe with the exception of Zinedine Zidane. They were not the best players of their times, but they were perhaps the most different players of their time. You look at a player like Jabi Alonso, you would clearly see that Alonso was different from everyone at the teams he played. Michael Carrick was different from everyone. Diego was different. Pep Guardiola, he was not there even at back, but he was a very important player for Barcelona. They were all silent players. That is, people, so what's this? What have I done? Beg your pardon. People are looking, people, and this is a mistake most people are making. People are looking at Carrick in the show of, okay, Ole and most of the other players, past players, but people forget that Michael Carrick, even when he was playing, he was a different player. Oh.